Hey guys, thanks for joining me for another Dissidia Final Fantasy Opera Omnia video, and today we are going to do a character guide on Edgar. Edgar I don't think is like a must-have character or anything like that, but he is from Final Fantasy VI, which is my favorite game. He does have some cool things that he does in his kit, so he definitely could be worth picking up if you have extra resources and you just want a character to have fun with, right? So in this video we're going to talk about the spheres that we should put on Edgar and the artifact passives that we should give him. And we're going to take a look at a little bit of gameplay and just explain how his kit works. There's also a bonus thing about Edgar that people don't know about. He actually has an additional weapon that not every character has. There's actually a few characters in the game that have a bonus weapon, and you may have passed up on it. So we'll talk about that in a second. So first, let's go ahead. We'll look at the passive artifacts here, and then we're going to look at the sphere. So let's go ahead and look at the artifacts. So for artifacts, it's pretty easy on him. Basically, you want to go attack 108, max brave 330, or his 2-star ability. So his 2-star ability is increases attack by 5% for 2 turns when using HP attack against machinery types. That one is a little situational, so you probably want to go attack max brave 330. Now, I haven't rebuilt my artifacts, so you see I have attack 108 and then the 2-star ability. The reason why that is because back when I originally built Edgar, I was just kind of in this mode, oh, they have a C50 passive and attack 108. That's kind of just what I was putting on people without even reading them. I haven't actually used Edgar until now, so now that I actually have him, I will refarm his artifacts, but I would say you just want to go attack 108, max brave 330, just because that 2-star ability against machinery types is very situational. Now, that being said, if you're going into a fight against machine types, you definitely could throw that passive on, right? And he's going to be looking pretty good there. So that's what you want to do for his artifacts. For spheres, we'll jump in the spheres here. So for the A sphere, basically you just want brave damage or attack damage, just like any other character. Once again, with A sphere, since there are so many of them, I like using spheres on characters that other characters cannot use. Edgar is very, very much about weakness damage, so I put Xande on mine. I thought that was a pretty decent one. So when you're attacking the weakness, you get brave damage and max brave, so I thought that was a pretty decent one. Basically, it's your choice. Based on whatever spheres you have, look at what you have, but as long as you're giving him brave or attack damage, then you're going to be fine there, okay? On the D sphere, I do think just giving him anything that's going to raise his attack or the party's attack, I think would be good there. I went ahead and put Lisa on there. Just when inflicting a break or attacking a target with break, raises party's attack by 2%. This is the refined one, right? If you want to do the bigger one. If you really like Edgar, you can put the actual spheres on, but I think refined spheres are just fine, especially for a character like Edgar. But kind of your choice on the D sphere. You could go with a Waka sphere. You just have to make sure you have enough setup to do that. Make sure you have enough buffs on and things like that. I like playing a little bit safer, just using spheres that I know are always going to activate. So that's what I did there. And then on the E sphere. So the E sphere is a little bit tricky because Edgar is all about debuffs, and the E sphere is a lot of times a debuff sphere. So if you want to give Edgar a sphere with a debuff, you have to make sure you're not giving him one that he's already producing, or you want to make sure you're giving him one that maybe will help tick an orb or something that he normally can't tick, right? What I like to do for this one in Edgar, since he's already got so much debuffing in his kit, I just wanted to go with something that would boost the attack. So I actually went with Pains. I think Pains is a very good one we could throw on Edgar here. So when you attack the target's weakness, once again, and it applies the weakness damage, which Edgar does, it's a party attack buff, and it lowers enemies' attack. So we're getting the attack buff with it, and we're getting a little bit of attack enemy lowering. Mainly I have it there for the attack buff though, right? So I thought Pain was a decent one. Once again, just look at your spheres and see what you have. Now, before we hop into the showcase, let's talk about our little bonus thing with Edgar here. So a lot of you, even some veteran players, may not have done this. This is very, very old school stuff we're talking about, right? So some characters very early in the game, I'm going to go to the item exchange here, had something called, I believe they're called World of Illusions weapons. And so what happened, this is like very early, I think this is before 35 CP era. Some characters actually got an additional 15 CP weapon, and Edgar is one of those. So if we go in, the only way to obtain this now is with power tokens. So if you go in with power tokens here, we're going to go down to where Edgar is. Final Fantasy VI, here we go. And then we want, I believe it's this one right here. Yes, the one we're looking for is called the Schwartz Lance. So there are many of you that probably thought your Edgar was fully built, but you might be missing the Schwartz Lance. And the Schwartz Lance is actually quite significant. When you have it maxed out, it increases party attack and max brave by 10% when the enemy is debuffed, which with Edgar, the enemy will always be debuffed. So 10% attack and max brave to party is not insignificant, and it does help him out. So please, definitely, if you haven't done it yet, go in and grab that Schwartz Lance and max it out. If you're someone like me, like, look at all the power tokens I have. I have like over 1,000 and I never have anything to use them on. It's much more efficient to actually just buy 4 copies of the weapon. Like, I would not use your power stones on this, just because power stones are going to be needed for FR weapons coming up. So I would conserve your power stones, and yeah, just jump in and buy 4 copies of the weapon. That's what I would do there. Okay, so let's go ahead. Let's hop into a fight here. So we're just going to jump into Edgar's own Lufenia Plus. And we'll just jump in and kind of talk about the kit here. So we'll just hop in. We don't really need a friend, no. Okay. So we're going to hop in. Basically what Edgar does is he can apply weakness damage of every weapon type. So he's got magic, he's got ranged, and he's also got melee in his kit, right? Alright, so we're going to get to Edgar's turn. And yeah, we're not going to do anything that's going to mess up these bosses. So with Locke, we're going to go ahead and we're just going to put his burst effect on here. Just because one of the things that's going to tick this orb is ignoring defense, which Locke will do. And then the other thing Edgar does is all of his attacks will get plus variance. All of his plus variance basically ignore defense, which is good, right? So basically the first thing we're going to talk about here, I'll kind of talk as we're going through Garnet's turn here. But basically his LD is what you want to open with. So we're going to go through with Garnet here. And when you open with LD, he's going to get a new Debilitator buff, which is really good. So what his LD buff does, well, yeah, we'll make Edgar look good, right? Let's just do double burst effects here. Basically what Edgar's LD buff does is whatever type of attack he does, it will imperil the enemy to that type. And Edgar happens to have a ranged attack, a melee attack, and a magic attack. So kind of what you want to do is you want to get Edgar's LD off, and then based on what type of damage your party is doing, you want to make sure you imperil that first, or just depending on what you want to do to enemy. So first we'll go ahead and take away the enemy turns. And then what we're going to do is, yeah, we're going to go ahead, yeah, we're going to get Garnet's follow-ups here, looking pretty nasty. Sure, and then we're going to go ahead and put the LD on, which is Royal Shock. His AA, by the way, sure, we'll throw the AA on. Basically just increases damage against debuffed enemies, and it's just better than he was before C90, right? So just keep that in mind. Increases damage in Max Brave against debuffed enemies. Okay, so, you know, a 700k LD isn't bad AoE. Edgar actually has very good, very competent AoE damage, which may be underlooked by a lot of people, right? Okay, and then Garnet, sure, we'll just do regular attacks here. Don't want to go too crazy and, like, accidentally kill these guys, right? Locke, yeah, let's do a big... We got to show off Locke a little bit, right? So let's go ahead and do the LD, and we'll get our Genji Glove for the next turn. Sure, why not? All right. So we're going to kind of talk about his other attacks here. So Auto Crossbow is actually, like, a pretty darn good ranged attack that he has. It just gives him some generic stat boost, but what happens is pretty much all of his attacks are going to apply a Royal Pressure debuff on the enemies, okay? So we're going to go ahead, and you want to keep that Royal Pressure debuff on, because when they have that Royal Pressure debuff, it's going to give Edgar all of his plus variants of his attacks. So we'll go ahead and do Auto Crossbow Plus here, and you see, became weak to range attacks. It actually tells you at the top, which is really good. So that was because we had the LD buff on, we hit him with the ranged attack, so now the enemies are weak to ranged, right? So that's very good. And you can see that was a pretty decent little AoE attack, right? Then we'll go ahead and do Drill. So Drill is the melee attack, so it's going to make them weak to melee because we have Debilitator on. And you can see it's mostly single target damage, but does have a little bit of splash damage. And once again, you're basically always going to have Royal Pressure on because pretty much all of his attacks are going to reapply it. So you don't really have to worry about that, right? And sure, let's let Locke go crazy and do this thing here. A lot of big fat damage here. Let's see, is this going to be a 2 million damage attack? Oh, 1.5. Not too bad, though. Alright, so we're going to let these guys go. Oh, no, they're going to get broken. So, no, they still don't get a turn. Sure. Why not? Alright, so we're going to just... Yep, we'll just keep doing Aquamarine. Just keep our Brave up. And then we'll let the enemies take a turn here. And then basically, when we did the LD, we got a special HP plus attack that we'll demo next. This is called Bio Blaster. What I love about it, so for those of you not familiar with Final Fantasy VI, basically Edgar was a really cool character because he just could buy these tools from his castle. And so Bio Blaster here, it's going to put poison on. That's the main thing that it does. It's a pretty powerful AoE attack and it puts poison on. And I believe Bioblaster is also like a magic-based attack as well. So, yeah, sure, let's do the EX with Lock here. So it's really awesome because part of what made Edgar good in Final Fantasy VI was you really didn't really have to invest anything in terms of equipment or anything into him, and he was just flat out good. Just because these tools are very powerful, right? And so the next one we're going to use is this EX, which is called Chainsaw. Chainsaw was like always basically his best attack in the game. It was actually a secret tool, like you weren't guaranteed to get it. It was in, I think the town was called Zozo or something. You had to do this mission where you had to like set the clock hands to a certain thing, and then you would find the secret room where you found the chainsaw. The chainsaw was very powerful. The thing I didn't like about it in Final Fantasy VI is it would randomly do like an instant death attack sometimes, which is great against normal enemies, but when you do it against bosses, it just always missed. So chainsaw was kind of a gamble, so sometimes you just go to drill. Okay, so let's go ahead and do chainsaw right now. So here's this chainsaw EX attack. And it's a fairly fast charging attack, right? And you can see very good damage, like almost 700k to 1 with some splash damage, right? So yeah, and then basically he gets a machinery buff from that, and the machinery buff just increases his stats a little bit. So it just makes him better, right? So that's pretty much Edgar in a nutshell. Basically, your rotation is start with LD to get Debilitator, and then you just cycle through your attacks as you need to based on how you want the enemy debuffed. You're going to keep applying that royal pressure. You're going to keep the enemies debuffed. You're going to have weakness damage for your party because you're going to be imperiling to whatever your party is using. So Edgar is just a very nice, very good, flexible character to run. And I mean, look at this. Like, Edgar is a fairly simple kit. And just during the showcase, I've pretty much already defeated his Lufenia Plus. Like, this is kind of a joke, not gonna lie. And sure, let's do a Genji Glove Master Skill. So anyways, I think we'll end the video there. So let me know what you guys think of Edgar. I think he's a fun little character, definitely cool. If you like Final Fantasy VI and you like doing the weakness damage and the debuffing, definitely worth picking up if you have the resources, but he should not be your first priority. Your first priority right now, guys, should be getting characters like Aiko, Locke, Garnet, like, they're super busted. So anyways, thanks for watching, guys. We'll catch you on the next one.